we have gotten our first taste of real heavy-duty capital class ships in Star Citizen. Polaris of course being the newest addition. We do have others which are not really combat related, but offer the ability to fill a capital ship role to an extent. Mostly performing in some support role like salvage, exploration, or just luxury transport. And we even can meet or find some of these ships, their wrecks, in certain parts of the world, either on a mission or just somewhere out in the verse, a wreck in the middle of a forest. Sure, some can be abandoned and we can occasionally find them. Even with these handful of capital class ships available, there really isn't any combat for them. Don't get me wrong, capital ships can be useful in combat scenarios and can be used against other capital ships like the Bir-dys in some high intensity missions, dynamic events, or wherever we may encounter them. So what are actually these non-combat related capital ships good for? What would be their main focus? Because they're not directly meant to lead a fleet like a capital ship would. We can take an example in the form of Reclaimer. This salvage focused capital class ship. Working alone, it has a requirement of 3 to 5 players to be optimal. The pilot, 2 salvagers and a storage manager, so you wouldn't really need much to perform the main action of the ship. Scrape it, break it, disintegrate it. But in the capital ship style, could it manage other salvage ships, like vultures, having similar holographic view as seen in the Squadron 42 trailer or demo, performing salvage jobs on an area where battle has taken place, or focusing on one really large ship from different angles and actually managing, let's say, a fleet of 6 vultures plus this reclaimer, salvaging either a single ship or a wreck site in a coordinated manner, which could be really interesting, or a ship like Korak, which is exploration focused and often also considered capital class ship. Perhaps this could manage scouting runs, performing in covering wide areas, terrains, spaces just to explore and find either resources, hostiles, bunkers, bases, groupings of enemies, other fleets, or even other scouting ships. Of course, by the assumption, this ship should have a beefy radar to discover any approaching enemy, which could serve another purpose in a fleet scenario. It might not be the leading ship of the fleet, but it could be the main scouting ship for the fleet, main reconnaissance, main first response ship. And we of course do have the 890 Jump, which is luxury transportation or luxury touring ship. Now, I would never imagine how this would in a fleet scenario work. Only thing I'm really imagining is bunch of 890s or bunch of Origin ships just flying in a fleet, doing some massive tour, exploring the world space and doing some low risk PvE missions, to be honest. Instead, I think they should go a bit into building with the Origin luxury ships. That is the big Origin luxury ships like the 890, the 600i. Still keep of course the touring elements and to keep that gameplay loop and well create that gameplay loop. But added some elements to, let's say, be a colonizer, to have something more to it than just a fancy big ship. Because being fully luxury ship, I don't think that is making the cut for this being very popular. I mean, it is still popular because it's large, it's fancy, it has those luxury elements, but fine. We don't know what the luxury transport or touring will be. But that seems like a very mild, single focus, simple low risk, low PvE activity. I think modularity would be ideal for this ship, but I don't see that happening. So we do have some variety in capital ships, but it is clear that they're mostly ready only for combat. Fine, some salvage elements, somebody probably uses the touring as his base of operations, has a little ship at the back, or somebody does the same with the Explorer. We also have some pretty big ships in the works like the Drake Ironclad or the Perseus. These are not capital ships, but this does not mean they could not lead a fleet or be in charge of a small grouping of units. Because I think it is very possible that even some of these large ships, which do not meet capital class ship criteria or sub-capital class ships in general, could actually be elite ships for smaller fleets. I am not stating here some combat related fleets, but yeah, that is also possible. They just may be a leading ship in a group of different combination of ships which focus on salvage, repair, mining, and just be in general like a storage ship or a ship covering all the work going on in a rather hostile place so that the non-combat related ships can do their work. So in general, all capital ships may not be fleet leading ships, and all fleet leading ships may not be capital ships, thus giving us freedom to create our own combinations of fleets. Of course, in combat scenario, it is probably a bit more important to have a lead ship as a capital class ship with a possible holographic view of the battlefield. But in most cases, I don't think it would really matter. But we do have an interesting variety of ships which are of capital class, but really wouldn't need to be capital class because they fill a specialized role. We don't know how or which way they will directly go with all of this, but there is freedom and I like that. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.